Welcome back to another episode of Horsepower. In this episode, I carry on with the GT86 Rally car project, which is getting an upgrade in the form of a 2GR+8HP and 8HP automatic transmission. In the last video, I got the engine mated up to the gearbox. Now I get to the process of mounting the drivetrain into the chassis. The engine is in. That mostly fits. We've got about sort of between 20 and 40 mil clearance at the back of the firewall to the engine. I'll probably shuffle it back another 10 mil. All in all, it actually fits pretty nice. There's a few little issues though. So the sump sort of overlaps the cross member here, so we're going to have to modify both the sump and the cross member to get that all to work nicely. There's also no space here for a rubber isolator mount thing, so I'm going to have to build a separate structure over here to mount that. Shouldn't be a big deal. There's plenty of space for exhaust manifolds, which is pretty nice. The only slight issue at the moment is the sway bar clearance, so it's pretty close to the sump of the engine there. Once we move that back another 10 mil, I think that will be sweet. The gearbox fits in there pretty nice. So what we'll do next is we'll take the motor out, and then we'll take the subframe out, modify the subframe, build a structure for the engine brackets. What we're also going to do is we're going to have to cut a hole in the firewall just at the back of the motor there. That's for this water outlet thingy, which currently, if this was on the motor, would go straight into the firewall, so we'll have to sort that out too. I didn't want to chop the entire firewall and send it real far back, because that just opens up a can of worms. So this is a compromise, but it actually sits probably 150 mil back from where the old engines sit, so it will shift the weight back, which is quite nice. And here is the modified subframe. So I've just tacked in these mounts here for now. They will go in there, and they can it'll be slotted so that when it comes in on an angle, it should be nice and easy to get lined up. And then you can just access the nut there with a spanner. So yeah, obviously that's the original engine mount plate there, and I've just removed that extra plate around there just for weight saving reasons. I've just tacked these bits in there for now, so we're going to put this into the car shortly and basically make sure it all works. The previous iteration of this car, I had to take some of the material out of the subframe to run the exhaust through. That was when it was a flat 6, and I've just sort of put some of that strength back in with this piece here. Now the original gearbox mounts failed with the 8HP, so they had to come out. I thought at the time the easiest way to do this was to effectively chop out a big section of the tunnel. In hindsight, I probably didn't need to go quite to this extent, but it definitely got them out, and then I can rebuild it later. After getting the transmission sitting in the tunnel, it quickly became apparent that there was no space for the exhaust. More chopping was needed to make space. A couple of 4-inch mild steel tubes were sacrificed and shaped to fit. Rather than having a square end to the new tunnels, I chopped up some 4-inch bends that were used to smooth out the new panel work. There also needed to be more space to allow the transmission oil lines to fit in the tunnel, hence the extra shaped piece of steel above the exhaust tunnel. Now on to mounting the engine. I started off with some thick wall pipe that I put some bends into. On the engine side, a plasma cut plate was used to bolt the existing mount holes in the block. A generic rubber isolator is used and sits on the cross member to isolate the vibrations. A little tubular stand-up is then bolted to the top of the isolator. Then the bent pipe is cut and notched to join everything together, before finally getting tacked together and then eventually fully welded. The sump needed to be modified. For those that don't know, the standard FSE sump was ditched in favour of the 2GR FE version. This converts it from a rear to a front sump. This was needed to clear the cross member and steering rack. Firstly, the rear section failed the cross member. This meant it needed notching and decreased the oil capacity. A wing was added to the front to compensate this lost capacity, plus a little extra. I will add in some extra baffling later on. The engine is now in its final resting position. We can see we've got reasonable clearance here. We could go a wee bit tighter, but it makes the engine a real pain to get in and out. Engine mounts are all done. They look really good. Coming around to the front here, she fits in there quite nicely. This should have come with one of these to start with. And the cool thing about having a nice wide engine bay from the Boxer, it's got plenty of room either side for big fancy exhausts. We can see a collector just hanging there, so that'll be a job before too long. Plenty of room on that side too. Coming round to the inside of the car, we can see the tunnel is all sealed up now. Obviously that there is for the exhaust. Still need to make a cut out there, or a block off for the shifter. And what I've also done is welded in some new seat mounts. That's going to shift the driver's seat as far back as it can go before it hits the roll cage. That's going to improve weight distribution, put more weight onto the back axle, give it all the grip we can get, take a wee bit of weight off the front that we've added with the extra weight of the engine. And then we're going to make a custom pedal box, which is going to go just here. I've removed all of the factory pedals, so they will no longer be required. And here is the back of the gearbox, all nicely mounted up. I've made some little mounts which go onto the tunnel, and they have some captive nuts welded inside there, and a custom cross member, just a basic fabricated sort of thing. Uses the factory rubbers from the 8HP. It all sits in there pretty nicely. I've welded in the tunnel that I chopped out, so these have had to come back a fair way from the factory mounts, and of course the exhaust tunnels. Obviously they're going to need to be trimmed back and tidied up, but that has all worked out very nicely. Next job here for me is the pedal box. So I have deleted the factory one, which, like any car, hangs from the firewall, and this thing here. And what we're going to do is a floor mounted pedal box. So it's going to sit here, and because I've moved the seat about 150mm back, about as far back as it goes, and that's in order to get the weight further back and onto the rear wheels. It basically means, because I'm a short ass, I'm not going to reach the pedals. Now, some advantages of a pedal box is we get to run a master for both the front and the rear axle, and then a balance bar between them, so we can easily adjust the ratio. Obviously we'll need a throttle pedal, and something unique, a clutch pedal, however a drive-by-wire clutch pedal which will work with the 8HP gearbox. All it's going to be essentially is just like an e-throttle, is just going to be a pedal with a 5-volt sensor on it. So there's a few unique requirements. One is that clutch pedal that I've talked about. I want the brake pedal to be central. I'm going to be both left foot and right foot braking. That's generally in rallying, left foot braking is advantageous, and to be honest, I don't really have a use of the clutch, so therefore I can probably 100% left foot brake. However, I still want to be comfortable using right foot braking, so we want to center that nicely with the seat. And because we've got this exhaust tunnel in the way, it's sort of going to interfere with where the clutch pedal is going to go. So what we're going to do is raise it up off the floor, and that'll be kind of F1 style, where your feet will be quite high up in there. So that'll be a little bit different. I've never driven with floor mounted pedals before, so it's going to be interesting, and I suspect it'll probably take a bit of tuning and stuff to get right. It's very important that we have comfortable pedals, ergonomics. We do a lot of seat time in a rally car, so you really want to be comfortable. You don't want to be thinking about, oh, I wish the pedal was over here, or the pedal's a bit firm, or the ratios aren't very good. So it's important we take our time and get this right. Another important consideration, so the seat will go back as far as it can and then probably never move again. So therefore, if anybody else wants to drive the car other than me, we're going to need an adjustable pedal box. This is the best way to do it, really. So it's going to be pretty easy, because the clutch and the throttle are both going to be just connected with wires, so that's pretty easy. And then the clutch will the brake will have normal flexible braided hoses, and then it'll probably just be secured with fasteners, just to make it. It's not going to get adjusted very often, but if I sell the car or somebody else drives it, we definitely want to be able to slide the pedal box forward and back. And here we have the pedal box itself. This is just a piece of 3mm sheet with a couple of folds on the end to give it a bit of stiffness, and the start of my clutch pedal. And obviously we've got a wee potentiometer here, which is off some Toyota e-throttle that I found in the scrapyard, and that just provides a 0 to 5 volt for the TCU, and obviously pivots there, and that works very nicely. This is a clutch pedal, and it's going to need some kind of beefy return spring on it. If you're going to use this all the time, you want to make a lot of effort to give nice clutch feedback. The guys that play with 8HPs and do a lot of drifting will spend a lot of time and effort into getting good pedal feel. I'm probably not really going to use this very much, so I'm not too stressed. It's going to be there more as a gimmick and something to play with, and if I end up using it a lot, then I can play and tune with it later on. But we will put a return spring on it. The only reason it's going to spring back right now is because of the spring in this sensor. So yeah, I drew and plasma this up, and pretty happy with it. Yeah, should work pretty well. Obviously in the middle our brake pedal will mount. A bit like that, and then the throttle pedal will go just there, and then in theory these will sit at roughly the same spot once everything is in place. And then we're going to drill a bunch of holes along here, which will sit on top of this. Yeah, pretty excited about it. Hopefully it works well. And here we have the pedal box mount, all fizzed up, and that is going to go somewhere around there. Probably needs a wee bit more trimming to sort of go over all these contours, and then another one about so, and then probably what I'll do is tie this into this cross member here. We really want this to be very nice and stiff. You put a lot of force into the brake pedal, especially with the non-boosted setup. So you want it to be very stiff, which gives you good feedback, and a brake pedal which flexes is not good for your confidence, and a pretty bad thing in general. So it's probably a wee bit overkill, this mounting system, but I don't want to take any chances with mounting a brake pedal. I want it to feel good and I want it to be safe. Right, a big part of this project is the electronics to make everything work together, and we've got a fairly sweet collection of bits here, a fairly sizable chunk of change as well. So we'll start off here. Obviously our 2GR FSE is direct injected, so we need an ECU that will control that, and we have here the latest Link G5 Voodoo Pro. I'm a big fan of Links. They've basically been in virtually all of my race cars throughout the years, and so I'm a big supporter of them. This has got some sweet new features like Wi-Fi and GPS and a few other niceties, so that's going to be pretty cool to play with. The other main thing we have is Turbolamic TCU, and there's a variety of different sort of ways to control the gearbox, and most of them use the factory computer inside the gearbox and then send modified CAN signals to the gearbox. The problem with that is you're then restricted to the factory ECU limitations. The Turbolamic, however, deletes the factory computer and controls it as a standalone, so you get ultimate control. I've heard nothing bad about these. I hear they can be a little fiddly to set up, but for the most part I hear they're amazing, so that's what we're going to go with. Moving across, we've got a dash display here. So this is from AIC. A friend of mine, Andrew, makes these. I haven't used this one before, but I'm pretty keen to try that out. So that just works by a CAN, and it will link together. And this is something new for me, a PDM. You're going to need two of them as well. Also from Link, which means it will talk really easily to the Link ECU. I'll show you shortly, but all the wiring in that car is big, heavy and ugly, so this will basically tidy everything up and sort of bring it into the 21st century. So I'm pretty excited to have a play with those. Moving along, we've got a whole lot of wiring for the Link ECU. So these are from Link, and these basically save you a lot of time and effort in terms of wiring. So basically you chop to length, put plugs on it. We're going to do a semi-mil spec loom with DR25 and heat molded boots and stuff. This isn't technically a mil spec, but it's still a very high quality wire. And then to work with the PDMs, we have a Link keypad. So it's got a couple of dials and all of these programmable buttons for all the indicators and lights and everything else that we need from a normal car. The car has to be road legal, so it needs all of the bits and pieces that a road car uses. And then to control the Lamic, we have both a set of pedal shifters, so these will mount to the steering wheel. And if I don't like them, we can use a good old-fashioned sequential shifter, which of course is controlled electronically. So this one here is from DCT. This is commonly used for Turbolamic setups. Got a really nice feel, so that will be pretty cool. That's all for this episode. The next one will either be some wiring or possibly an exhaust, depending on when stuff arrives. So thanks for watching.